Welcome to the Profiled Corner. Today I've got an assortment of router bits in front of me here that I purchased on eBay. I wouldn't normally buy router bits on eBay, and I try my best to avoid quarter-inch shank router bits such as these. However, I couldn't resist when I saw that the majority of them were Whiteside brand router bits. For those that do not know, Whiteside is one of the best router bit brands on the market. They're made in the United States, and they have high quality carbide, and they're very durable. The unfortunate thing is that the majority of these router bits are extremely rusty. It's mostly just surface rust. However, they are rusty, and I prefer that they not be rusty. The router bits that I have over here on the side are also Whiteside router bits. The router bits I purchased here that are in front, I paid $100 for them on eBay. It was not an auction, it was just a listing asking $100 for the router bits. Is that a good deal? Yes, maybe. No? I don't know. Well, this set of router bits, there's just 4 here, includes a bit with a bearing on the bottom for doing flush trimming, a bit with a bearing on the top for doing pattern work, a small roundover bit, and a small chamfer bit. This costs $95 on Amazon. That's a pretty good deal for Whiteside bits. This set of router bits is designed for working with CNC machines. I was surprised that they all have quarter-inch shanks also. This set sells for $400, which is quite a bit of money. I was hoping that they would have half-inch shank router bits in here because that's what I prefer to use, but they didn't have any. I guess they were planning on having these be used with small CNC routers instead of the larger CNC routers. So anyway, I need to take care of this rust problem that we have on these router bits. So I was thinking about throwing a party, which is why I included the rice pudding. But that's just a container that I'll be using. I have white distilled vinegar, orange juice with no sugar added. I have an extremely flat 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke. I probably purchased this 5 years ago and I never used it, never opened it. And I have a 2-liter bottle of Diet Cherry Coke, which is about a month old. And as well as that, I've got a product called Rust Free. I'm not planning to use this Rust Free product. I have used it in the past on cast iron surfaces, and it kind of works, but it doesn't work as well as I'd like. So it's my understanding that if you leave the router bits in white distilled vinegar for about 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer than that, it should take off the rust. And I'm understanding that because this has acid in it similar to the acid that's in orange juice, the orange juice should also work in a quite similar way. And oddly enough, Coke is supposed to have similar type of acid in it that is able to take care of the rust, but I don't know if it works with flat Diet Coke and non-flat cherry Diet Coke, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to collect these router bits and put them into 4 containers, and then we'll give these a test, and then I'll come back with the results later on, and then we'll see how well they did. It's nice to know that some of these router bits do not have any rust on them at all, and those bits that have bearings on them, I'll try to remove the bearings if I have an appropriate size tool to take the bearings off, and if I don't, then I'll just go ahead and put the bearings in into the mix, and that may eliminate any lubricant that's inside the bearings, which may cause them to be defective, but that's a risk that I'll have to take if I can't get the bearings off. Okay, we have a couple router bits in each of the products. We'll come back to this in about 2 hours and see how they're doing. I had to put a couple router bits in with their bearings attached because I could not get the bearing off, but I was able to remove the bearing from a couple, so we'll be able to see how the different products affect the bearing grease also. Hi, we're back after about a 2-hour delay. I want to clarify a few things. First of all, this rust-free product, it does work on cast iron, although it's not always extremely effective. And also it needs to be a certain temperature in the room. I believe it says at least 60 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. Works best above 70 degrees. And it's quite a bit colder than that in the shop today. I brought these products into the house so that they wouldn't freeze, because it is around 20 degrees if I'm not mistaken. I have not looked at these after the 1 hour mark. I did peek at them at the 1 hour mark to see if there was any kind of progress, but I have not looked at them since that time. Surprisingly, quite a few of the Whiteside bits that are still down here didn't have any rust on them. I'll be using Simple Green on those bits to clean up any kind of gunk that's still on the bits, and that should work just as effective as pretty much anything else. Okay, so let's get these out of the way. So let's take a look at the Diet Cherry Coke results. Okay, this router bit doesn't have any rust on it anymore. It still has plenty of spotting on it. I wasn't able to remove the bearing. Let's see if we can get this a little bit better shot. It had quite a bit of surface rust before it was dropped in. So the Diet Cherry Coke, that's not too terribly old, still works for removing rust. There is a little bit of discoloration on the shaft still, but it's not too bad. Pretty much the same result with this router bit. This looks pretty good. The bearing is locked up on this, and I believe it was locked up at the 1 hour mark also. This bearing is still free turning, so I don't think that it was the Diet Cherry Coke that caused the lockup of the bearing. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the Diet Coke that's been sitting for about 5 years and has absolutely no fizz to it. Hey, here's the 3 router bits that I had in there. The center one didn't have a whole lot of rust on it, but it did have some sort of glue-like substance on it, and that glue-like substance is still on the bit, locked on solid. The other 2 bits are essentially rust-free, but they are discolored where the rust was at. Okay, the orange juice is surprisingly effective. It didn't seem to make any improvement at the 1 hour mark, but now that it's been in there for 2 hours, that looks really good, and I'm not seeing any discoloration in the shaft, at least, on these two router bits, where the rust had been. Whereas the Diet Coke seemed to leave a bit of discoloration. And the bearing seems like it still turns. We'll have to see after these dry out if the bearings are still functional. Okay, and now for the white vinegar. There's still quite a bit of rust on the bits. So while white vinegar works great to clean out a coffee maker, it doesn't look like it works as effectively as the orange juice in a 2 hour time period. So I may try to scrub these bits to see if they'll loosen up any of the rust that's on them. But it still looks better than it did when those bits went into the vinegar. Now let's check the bearings here to see if they're still able to turn. That feels a little bit rough. That bearing is also feeling a little bit rough. However, they may have been that way when they went in. Okay, I should also state that before I bought these router bits from the seller on eBay, I knew from the pictures that the eBay seller had posted that they did have surface rust on them. And I was okay with that rust as long as the seller protected the cutting edges well in shipping. And he did an excellent job to package these up, to wrap each individual router bit in paper towels, and then wrap groups of them together so they did not get destroyed in shipping. So we'll have to try to brush out these 3 bits that were in the vinegar and see if we can get the surface to finish up a little bit nicer than what they are right now. I'll report back to see how these are doing after a little bit more work. Okay, a little bit of an update. I have not scrubbed this bit yet with a sponge that I have. I did scrub another one that's dipped, this sponge is dipped in white vinegar, and that other bit cleaned up very nicely. So you should be able to see that there's still rust on it. Let's try to scrub this right in front of the camera and see what happens. Okay, so far, it appears as though scrubbing is working. If I can get it to focus. Scrubbing is taking off the little bit of rust that was remaining on the bit. So it does look like the vinegar works after 2 hours. However, you have to scrub the bits, whereas I didn't have to do that with the other solutions. Now your results may be different than mine, but this is a very positive sign. I will mention that you shouldn't have to encounter these issues with rust on your router bits, if you're able to keep them in an enclosed area, even in an unheated shop. So in other words, keep them in a drawer that has a top to it. Or keep them in some sort of a container such as the container that the bits ship in. Maybe a little plastic envelope or something like that. Okay, so I am impressed with all the results that I'm seeing here. So I believe this $100 purchase actually returned quite a bit of value to me, because I believe this one bit that I'm holding up sells for about $35 new from Amazon. So that's a pretty good result. Okay, that's about all for today. This video. Thank you for joining me. Have a nice day. Bye.